we would cut laps around Auckland City it would start at maybe 10:30, 11 at night, and it would be going to taking corners at speed sideways. It's controlled, uncontrollable skidding. I came up from, as a kid, always wanted to be a race car driver.
Matthew, welcome to the frequency of the Kaleidoscope Mind.
This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, how are things going?
Oh, pretty cool, actually, I guess. It's the weekend.
Taken a while to get here.
Yeah.
But we finally made it.
This room looks awesome. I think you should be really proud of this room.
I'm never proud, as you would know, of anything, really. It does look okay. I think.
Mate, it's awesome.
It looks nice.
This is cool.
It's got that relaxing vibe to it, which I kind of feel is good to have people in here who are calm and relaxed, because you don't want someone coming into some dingy room and it's just disgusting and it smells.
Your back room. Come hang out in my back room for a yarn.
I think the way YouTube has given people access to the world, people just do whatever. They start off with how they can. But I didn't want to start off, because I was interviewing people, I didn't want to start off with some weird, you're just like on some dingy sofa and you're just like there. And I just thought, at least have it nice so when people come in, they feel comfortable. Because the more comfortable you are, the
you're not
easier.
pushing the pizza boxes and the beer bottles out of the way. Oh, just, have a seat here, mate.
Rank. That is absolutely rank and gross. Well, I think there's a number of things that we wanted to talk about, but one thing in particular. So we've discussed it, but haven't spoken in depth and at length, is around your experience around drifting.
Alrighty, yeah.
And specifically car drifting as well, because I find it fascinating. Never really paid attention to it before I obviously met you and you started mentioning it. I have seen 2 of the Fast and Furious films, which I can't stand at all.
You can't base it off that, but yeah.
Which is why.
What ones did you watch?
I watched the Tokyo Drift one, which was horrendous. And I think it might have been the first one as well that I've seen.
It's a bit of cinematic history right there, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just not my thing. No. But I thought it would be good if we have a deeper discussion around it, so I can pick your brain around things, because I want to talk to people about their experiences, but things that are actually quite close to them. But before we actually get into that whole deep dive thing, could you just spend a few minutes just explaining what exactly is car drifting for someone who has no idea or no concept? For those who are either listening or watching, what is it? What's car drifting?
Well, I guess I'm definitely not the most experienced person to be asking, but I mean, I did spend quite a few years engaging in the sport, I think, and it's the best fun by a long shot. Some would say that it's the most stupidest thing you can do in a car, but by heck, it is the most fun, hands down. I came up from, as a kid, always wanted to be a race car driver, and as I grew up, I found out that mum and dad couldn't just go get me a race car. We couldn't go go-kart racing, but we'd always go to watch motorsport. And as I got older and got adult money, I was able to get into motorsport. And I got into circuit racing initially, but then morphed when I spied drifting, and I found that just, it blew my mind with taking corners at speed sideways while being out of control but completely in control at the same time.
So if you could actually just phrase it in the most basic way to someone who doesn't know, what is drifting?
Oh, I don't know, you'd be like driving sideways fast. Yeah, it's controlled, uncontrollable skidding.
Right.
In a way That might not be the best words to use, but I guess you're purposefully getting your car out of control to maintain a controlled slide through a corner, and then be able to link that with corners coming up and just have the most fun.
At high speed, or?
Yeah, there can be some high speeds involved. Some of it is low speed as you're getting to learn. It can be quite scary. But a mentor that helped train me years ago, Dan Bennett, if you're watching, he always told me, and I could still remember his voice in my head going, "You need to go faster. The faster you go, the easier it is." And then you hear of the same thing as from someone else. I can't remember who said it, but if you're not scaring yourself while drifting, you're not going fast enough. So you're on the edge of throwing it all away, but yet maintaining that control at the same time.
Okay.
That's great.
So you started talking about going to motor races just briefly before.
Yeah.
So tell me, how was your journey into drifting? Because I sat and thought about it, that it's not something that someone would just wake up one day and think, "Do you know what, I want to be a drifter." It's more something you get into via a motor sport or some sort, whether you're street racing or whether you're actually rally racing or something. But I wouldn't assume it's something you just think, "Oh yeah, I want to be a drifter." So talk to me about how you got involved, your journey from the beginning parts to how you got actually into drifting.
Yeah, I guess, motorsport was just, I guess Dad was big into motorsport. He used to race motorbikes back in his day when he was a young fella. So naturally, because Dad would watch motorsport, I would watch it. And we'd quite often watch, the V8 supercars or the Australian series, and then you'd be watching. We'd go to Western Springs when we were living in Auckland, Western Springs Speedway, and we'd be there. We'd be there often. Wouldn't go heaps, but I remember going quite often. And that technically being an oval track is almost sliding around the track. They're drifting around the track as well. But that never sort of caught my attention to make me want to do it. But then I guess as I grew up as a kid, didn't know what I wanted to do in life after school, and Mum suggested I become a mechanic because she's like, "You like cars, why not be a mechanic?" So every kid so far, most of the mechanics I've met and kids that I've met that want to be mechanics because of motorsport. They want to work on race cars. They want to do race car things. And that, for the majority of apprentices that I've worked with in the years, that's what they want to do. It's because of motorsport. Even our apprentice at work currently, he's 17, 18, and him and his dad, they love going to, they photograph rally a lot of rally. So yet again, his apprentice is keen on motorsport. So that, I guess, that gets a lot of apprentices in. But to get into motorsport was really difficult. So the next best thing is if you can be a mechanic on a race team. And that was one of my ultimate goals, was to be part of a race team. And through those years, that got me into Targa Rally and WRC. I was able to crew on a team for a short period for WRC, and that was an experience.
Where was that?
That was in Auckland when WRC came to Auckland, and I got invited to crew on a team, which was really nerve-wracking, being on like a lower tier level, but still within WRC was quite daunting. But also I was crewing and being on the team for a Targa rally team. So Targa was like a tarmac rally that would start in Auckland and end in Wellington. It was a whole lot of street circuits, and it was basically a charity event, but still high-speed motorsport. And being a mechanic on the team meant I got to tag along with the team, and a whole week was paid for. So I just got to play motorsport for a week. Took a week off work and traveled the country, see all these cool places, and be involved in that team was really awesome. And I think that paved the way to wanting to be further into professional motorsport. But then, and that my love of circuit racing was sort of centered around that.
So just how old was you during this period?
Or I've sort of skipped around a bit, but the first time when we used to go to Western Springs in Auckland would have been maybe pre-teens in that sort of time frame.
Yeah.
And then once I'd gone to school and high school and all, I was, wasn't able to drive obviously, but was still keen on cars. And then that would have been, so after high school would have been 2001 actually.
Oh, yeah.
Was my, year 2000 was my last year of high school. And 2001 I bought my first car.
Oh, yeah.
Was a 1970 Datsun 1200 coupe for $700-800, I think. Which good luck trying to find one for that price now. You'd be hard pressed to find anything under 10 grand, even if it was still a project car in pieces. And I guess in that time era, I was big into circuit racing. I was just wanted to do circuit racing. So throughout the years, I was just sort of building that Datsun up with my dad. And we'd work on it in the garage, and we spray painted it ourselves in the garage. We built a new motor for it, put a bigger gearbox and better gearbox, and just working on it, just making it better. And at that time, I was big into the street racing scene as well, mainly because of the quarter mile, the drag racing. And this was about the time when Fast and Furious came out as well. So being heavily involved in that, we'd go into Auckland City and we would frequent Queen Street and Key Street down in Auckland City Central, and we'd spend countless hours out there every single weekend almost. Because once I got my license, I was out there every weekend, just mainly watching everyone else be hooligans, because I had a Datsun. It wasn't fast, it wasn't cool, it wasn't flash, but it was just I wanted to be part of the riffraff, part of the menacing society back then. And there was heaps of areas where you could go back then, which is now built up with factories or high-rise apartment buildings now.
So they were predominantly derelict areas that just didn't have...
They're just, big gravel pits, really.
Right.
The meetup was called the Gravel Pit.
Oh, okay.
People would do skids in there and flick stones on everyone's cars, and people would start hooting and hollering. But it was basically just a hangout area.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty clean back then. It was great. It was a good time. I'd say it was some good memories from back then, yeah.
And that was your first kind of taste of that whole street racing scene?
Yeah, so I was big into street racing back then. And then as I sort of progressed through, I guess, being a young adult and getting a job as a mechanic and then earning some money, which I thought was big bucks, but there's still basically minimum wage. I didn't have any responsibilities. I had to put petrol in my car and get myself to work, and that was it. That was great. And bought my first turbo car, which was a Mitsubishi Libero. So it's a station wagon. And so I spent a lot of money on that to make it fast. And so I do a lot of street racing. I go to the illegal drags on Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, and I'd just race on the street. Did lose my license twice for street racing, so had to go to court. And about that time, I can't remember what year it was now, but that was when some of the audience may remember Judith Collins, I think her name was, Crusher, the car crusher lady. She was
I mean, I wasn't here then, but I do know who she is.
You might remember, Judith Car Crusher Collins was, and she bought a little thing out about crushing street racers' cars because they wanted to get them off. It was a street racing epidemic. I think there was a 60 Minutes piece on, I believe it was 60 Minutes, something like that, about the street racing epidemic in New Zealand. And I happened to be on one of those shows.
Just going back then, without moving too far across, why do you think there was such a rise in street racing during that period? Was it the influence from Japan? Was it the influence from America? Like what do you think?
Well, I believe
was the cause of it.
I could have my dates wrong, but I believe I was in on street racing before the Fast and Furious movement came through.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely once Fast and Furious came out, it exploded.
Right.
Absolutely exploded.
So it made it even more popular with young... was it mainly young men, young boys, young men?
There was all shapes and colours that were there.
Right.
And different ages. There was young, there was old, men, women. Some people brought their dogs out.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people. And it got really bad. The streets were packed. I mean, for anyone that knows the first Fast and Furious movie, when the police turn up to break up the street racing, in one of the first racing scenes, how everyone scatters, it was exactly like that. It was absolute chaos, to the point where me and my mates, we wouldn't scatter because you can't go anywhere once you get in your car to move when the police come down the street, because there's so much traffic. You can't go anywhere. So you're stuck in the same position, so you might as well just wait it out. So we ended up just sitting there. You know, our car's parked down the road further, so we don't need to worry about it, but you're just standing there. You're in a public place. You're allowed to be there, but obviously not illegally street racing. But it was just, diabolical time.
So how long was you involved in street racing before you was introduced to the whole drifting?
So that would have been about 7 or 8 years, maybe.
Oh, so that's quite some time.
Yeah, quite some time. Because I guess I got my first car in 2001.
Yeah.
And I was doing that quite a bit because I was all about speed. We'd go to at just south of Auckland, there's Miri Dragway, which is still currently there, and that's just slightly north of Hampton Downs Raceway, which wasn't there back then. But we would frequently go to the Friday night wars. Friday night wars would be on at Miri, and it would be packed to the rafters there. There's so many people. Until the point where when I got that turbo car and I built it up and I made it faster, I went to race there a few times. I did take my dad's WRX, Subaru WRX once when he was in Japan. I didn't tell him, and I stripped out all the interior of the car and took it to the drags.
Oh, goodness.
He knows about it now, so he's I let him in on the secret a while back. But he was pleased but disappointed because I got a pretty sweet time on that. Down the quarter mile of that. But I guess it was all about going fast in the straight line because I hadn't been introduced to drifting at that time. But it was big. I guess because of Fast and Furious, it just exploded the street racing and drag racing scene in New Zealand.
So was it due to that you became interested, or was there somebody who actually introduced you into, because you mentioned your mentor, was it Dan something?
Yeah.
Was it him who introduced you into it, or was it more just something that started to gain traction because of those movies?
No, he was part of the drift club I was a member of.
Oh, right.
So that was later on in a few years. So I've skipped a bit, but I guess from street racing, because I lost my license twice for street racing, that put a bit of a damper on like where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. But in that mid 2000s, mid to late 2000s is when drifting was starting to be a thing. And me and my buddy, we went to a few drifting, which was early days of D1NZ, and we went to one at Pukekohe Raceway, and we actually drove down here to the Manawatu and went to one at Manfield, and we watched that, and it was just like, what the heck is this? It just blew us away. Just how awesome it was, and just watching it and thinking this can't be real life. And I don't recall what was the pinnacle for me changing my mind.
What was it about what you saw though that gripped you?
I think it's because of going fast sideways.
Right.
Whereas previously
the whole motion of it.
Yeah, I was going fast in a straight line.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's still pretty cool. You know, I think my fastest time was on the quarter mile was a low 12 second. And back then that was, that was okay. But now cars these days will obliterate that. Street cars these days will obliterate that. But I felt pretty cool because I was getting a low 12-second or like a mid 12-second, mid to low 12-second quarter mile on my car. So still pretty quick. But watching these lads send it sideways at speed was, and just the finesse of it too, how smooth it looked. I mean, it just was, wow, this is cool. But I stayed in drag racing for a bit and sort of dabbled a bit in circuit racing with a friend. We bought a race car together just to sort of, so we could get seat time, get track time, and just go fast around the track legally. Because I lost the license twice, I needed to pull back on that because I didn't want to get my car crushed.
So part of the motivation was actually finding something you can do legally without getting.
It made me a lot more
caught.
smarter where I played silly buggers.
Right.
If I wanted to go out and have some fun, you just go with no one. I guess because of the carnage, some of the carnage that we saw at the legal drags on the Friday, Saturday nights all over Auckland. I mean, we would cut laps around Auckland City it would start at maybe 10:30, 11 at night, and it would be going till 3 or 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And then that's when I'd be getting home. And we'd be doing that Friday, Saturday night, sometimes Sunday night. And you're up for work the next morning. So there was a lot of car crashes. We've seen a lot of accidents where people are racing and then someone pulls out of a side street and then just could be just a general member of the public or another car that was there watching the event. I believe there had been people that had been killed. So I never saw that, like due to car accidents and people were getting hit. So yeah, it got pretty feral, and I think that's when they were doing that epidemic, and the cops were really coming down hard on them. And I only got caught because they did a huge sting in East Auckland, and they just blocked off all the streets, and the chopper was out, and floodlights, and just cops for days. So they had to block the streets just to catch everyone in. Thinking back on it now, it was, pretty crazy. But I guess trying to find a place that you could, have fun, because track days weren't easily accessible. Well, not to my knowledge anyway. Track days weren't easily accessible for the average Joe to pay the entry fee and go down to the track. You generally had to be part of a car club. But maybe I was living under a rock and I didn't actually know about that. But to my knowledge, it was quite, it was a little bit difficult at the time. But moving into those areas of more, I've lost my license twice. I can't afford to do it again. I need to stay on track and sort of get a bit of legality under it.
So from attending that race or show in Manfield, what was the length of time from then to you actually, because you had to actually learn how to drift as well, right?
So I think there would have been possibly even maybe like 3 to 4 years in between watching drifting and then attending some drift days like the D1NZ and watching a few of those, to me actually buying my first car that I was going to drift or wanting to learn to, because I had an Mitsubishi Evo 5 at the time, in that sort of time frame, sort of in between there. I had my Libero and all my Evo 5, so I could have my dates wrong, but sort of in that sort of era.
Yeah.
I had my Datsun and then my Libero, and I still had both of those cars. Sold the Datsun, which I should have never have done in hindsight if I'd only known. If I could go back in time, I'd have that car back in a heartbeat. But then I had an Evo 5. But then that's when drifting was peaking in my interest more. And I could skid up in the Evo, and it was fun because it's being a four-wheel drive and being high horsepower four-wheel drive. You could pull some pretty cool stunts in that car. but I started having gearbox issues, and I couldn't afford to get those gearbox issues fixed. So before making it worse, I sold that car. And I can't remember what I had in the meantime for that. Probably not much, but I did go to Japan and teach English for a short period. But my current wife now was girlfriend at the time, Kat. She wanted an S13, and she asked her dad, "Can I have this? Can I get this? Can I get some money to get this S13?" And he said, I believe he said no. Like, nah, you can sort yourself out, or something maybe along the lines of that. Kat might be able to tell the story a bit better, but I said, "Oh, okay, I'll buy it for you." So I had some spare cash, so I bought her the car. And while I was in Japan, something happened to it, and she had to take it into the mechanics to get fixed because I wasn't around to help get it fixed. Because it's a perfect chassis for drifting, rear-wheel drive, and just a good, nice base to start off with. And ended up, something happened at the mechanics, and she was driving home from work, and she crashed it. Well, the brakes wouldn't work, or something like that wouldn't work, and she crashed on the freeway. And I mean, she front-ended it, and it got rear-ended as well. And it just got totaled. It just got ridden off. And I wasn't there to be able to help or save any parts or anything, but it was gone. So in that sort of time frame is around about then, and then she found another one in Cambridge, and we drove down from Cambridge to go pick it up, and it was cheap. It was like maybe $2,000 or something, $2,000 for this S13, which now, yet again, they're probably worth about 25 to 30 grand now for one of those. But they were cheap, so cheap back then, so we bought it. And I guess because that was, I guess, the tipping point for getting into drifting. It's like, right, I've got this rear-wheel drive car now. It's ready to go. Let's just give it a try.
So when did you start then? After you got that car, how long did it take you to?
There's maybe, I think it was 2010.
Right.
2010 is when I went to my first drift day.
Okay.
I believe
with the car.
With that car.
So a drift day is when you take the car to the track.
Yeah, so by now there's plenty of organised drift days that you can go to.
Right.
Or Hampton Downs has now been built, and they had a big concrete skid pad, and this was a perfect time for you to just learn how to do a donut or how to do a figure eight. I can't remember who was running the day back then, but it was a day that I paid for just so I could get some basics under my belt. And I had done skids in a car before, but never to the point where I can get it to actually maintain and hold a drift. So I'd had the car for a few, maybe a year by then or so. So I'd done a few modifications to be able to get it to the point where it's able to do a skid and it's able to maintain something. But I just needed the connection between the pedals and the steering wheel to work. Right. So that was just getting some seat time, just getting some driver training.
So how long did it take you to become confident?
Oh, mate, I'm still not confident. I think I could be wrong, but I think every driver has that in them. I mean, the last time I did some proper drifting was 2019 or 2020.
That's
and even then,
some 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So even I've sort of been out of the scene. I've taken a bit of a break. But even back in 2020, 2021, I think, obviously because the whole world shut down. But back then, I was still really nervous about sending it. And so I'd spent a solid 10 years at it. I'd spent 10 solid years, and I put a lot of hours into that car. Put a lot of time and effort, a lot of money into that car. Just to, I guess, half of that time I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have anyone teaching. You just sort of just had to suck it and see. And you just had to just try and go. Because there's a plethora of videos out now, or people on YouTube channels now, or there's plenty of drift teams out now that you can lean on for information or for help. And once you get a couple of buddies around you, they'll just a connection through Instagram or something or anything now, Facebook groups now, you'll find someone that will be willing to lend a hand and show you, you do this, do that, do this, do that. But back when I started, I wouldn't say it was new, but there's a few groups that were doing really well. And if you saw their blog or their write-up on a forum's big back then, the early 2010s, I guess forums were massive. So
they were already established, like teams or?
Yeah, there was one of the teams that I really looked towards was C's Garage.
Okay.
There's a couple of lads, a couple of brothers, Joel and Adam from C's Garage.
Are they Auckland based?
They're Auckland based, yeah. They were out West Auckland, I believe. Still kicking it today. Still, I guess their style, their driving was all based off Japanese driving.
Right.
Because Joel had spent some time in Japan, and Adam builds epic cars. And that was like a pinnacle for me, sort of just to watch what they were doing and seeing what they're doing and wanting to be like that. But in South Auckland, I didn't get to hang out with them much. Just sort of when you see them at a track day, there's the lads, you know. You sort of see what they're up to and see how they drive, and it's all based off Japanese driving. I don't know why I didn't really search out Japanese driving much. I just sort of, maybe I didn't know what I was looking for, but I just sort of more focused on how to get going myself and just pushing hard for driving myself. And I guess, I don't recall spending too much time trawling the internet for information, but just driving, fixing my car, driving. Something breaks, make it better so it doesn't break again, drive. If something else breaks, fix it, drive again. Just trying to get as much driving in as possible. Because that was also my car that I drove to work in, I had to have it reliable. But also, I was doing a lot of street, just driving fast on the street to feel the car and just to be one with the car. I did a lot of that too.
Oh, yeah.
But then that first drift day that I went to at the skid pad, there's a bunch of lads there that I had an idea of who they were, but I didn't know any of them personally. I knew of one of them. It was Nate Steele, and he came up to me and jumped in my car, jumped in my passenger seat, and I was really taken back as this big merry fella's jumped in my car, and I was like, g'day mate. He's like, you're looking pretty good. Let's go for a drive. I was like, okay, cool. And I didn't know who jumped in my car. He had a helmet on, and we just went out and drove. And he's like, that's pretty mean. How long have you been doing this for? I said, it's my first day. And he's like, nah. I was like, yeah, mate. Something along the lines of that conversation. I don't recall. I was buzzing out. And then when I found out who he was, when he'd taken his helmet off, I was like, oh, he knows how to drive. So I've seen some of his stuff. So, and then he's like, oh, you should join our car club. And it was zERO Fighters was the name of the car club. And all of them were all standing around with all their team T-shirts on and everything. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. I got no mates. So, no mates over here, and I went and joined in with them.
So that was your inroad, really?
Yeah. And that club was probably the best thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
It was such an awesome team. I guess because it was filled like chocker with lads all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to suck it and see. Some were better than others. Some wanted different styles of cars. Some wanted a bit of rough and ready. Some wanted the flashy stuff. But that team was epic, absolutely epic. From lads all over the North Island.
How long was you with
zERO Fighters
team for?
Oh heck, technically haven't left. I still talk to some of the lads today.
You're still on the books.
Yes, that was forum days as well.
Yeah.
So we had a big forum that we had, and that was big into the forum days. And so unfortunately, I guess Facebook killed forums, I'd say. That really killed forums. I'd love to bring back forums, but I think the lad that was basically heading up the website, it's just because no one was using it, so he just sort of didn't renew the lease on the domain.
These things always dwindle out, though, don't
they? They do. Unfortunately, they're actually planning a reunion like now. I think it's supposed to be, and actually halfway through this month, it's supposed to be a reunion for all the boys and girls to get together. But I think it was because it was a real family team. Like everyone was just real chill, and it was able to be all different walks of life and skills and everything. And we brought it together, and we actually did our own training days as well. So we had that much wealth of knowledge that we could run our own training days. And we'd sort of cycle through our own training days. So some lads would drive, they might take a half-time break and then swap over. So the guys that were on the cones or on the flags or tutoring would swap over, and then I'd have a drive. So we'd make sure that we'd have a bit of cycling through.
So it sounds like there's quite a lot involved, you know, even in just the maintenance of the vehicle, getting it right, tweaking it, you know, upgrades, all of this stuff. So if you could think back and estimate, how much time would you actually spend a week or even a month on your vehicle?
Oh, heck. I guess being a mechanic myself, sort of cheating, because I fix cars for a living. So fixing cars was easy for me.
Yeah.
I had all my tools. I had the knowledge.
Okay, outside of work hours.
Outside of work hours. Well, obviously, definitely outside of work hours, made countless hours. I could not put a number on or a dollars on the amount of money and time I've spent on that car. I've had that car since the S13, which I still have currently. I've had that for maybe 18 years now. I can't quite remember, but we've been through a lot together, me and that car, and I've had that car longer than I've been married. So the wife's always telling me to get rid of it, always telling me to sell it, but I just can't.
No, it was
I just
here
can't.
from the beginning.
Even my oldest daughter is telling me I should take up drifting again.
Really?
Yeah. Maddie was telling me, yeah, you should do it. And Kat was not pleased.
Well, from what you've said, I can see it's something that takes up a huge amount of time, and it would take away time from the family as well, isn't it? So that you'd have to weigh that up, wouldn't you?
So I guess that's sort of where my hiatus has come in from, I guess, because before we moved down to Manawatu here, would have been about 6 or well, hang on, what are we, 2025 now?
Yeah.
So we moved down in I think late 2018. I think late 2018 we moved down here. So, and about then I did a drift day at Manfield down here, and that was great. That was you gotta pick your pennies up to do that track. Well, for me anyway, because it's fast. You're starting in fourth gear, so you've got some pace. You got to carry some pace through those corners. So I had to sack up a little bit and to do that track. But once you get it, by far it was so cool. But I noticed that, I guess because my kid's getting older, I wanted to spend more time with them. And drifting with the setup I had, I couldn't take any passengers because I don't have a full roll cage. And you got to be safe. And I think the rules and regulations about taking passengers now is a lot more strict than it used to be. I used to take passengers in my car all the time when I just had my half cage, my half roll cage. So it's only good for a rollover really, but there's no side intrusion bars. There's nothing protecting you from the front. So I get it. It's safe. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, I've taken some people for some passenger rides back in the day, especially at Taupo. Taupo Motorsport Park, he's got some cool tracks there. They're not super fast, but still fast enough to do some damage.
Oh, yeah.
So seeing the family on the sidelines, I always had fun. But, you know, the wife looking after the two kiddies and having them all being a mischief and everything, you can see it's not it just wasn't exactly awesome. So I've sort of I had to put it on hold. I had to put drifting on hold for a few years. I don't know when that would be, but I still have the car, and I'd love to get back into it. And I think, and when you mentioned that we're going to be yarning about this, just got me all fired up again. I just want to get behind the wheel and go for a drive.
Yeah, because I, as I mentioned before, it was the one thing that we haven't actually spoken about properly. We've spoken about a number of different things you've done, I've done, but not. You've just mentioned it, and you say the same thing about audio engineering for me. We haven't actually really dived into, that. But before because you've mentioned about you stopped. Did you ever race competitively in drifting?
No, I crewed for a couple of teams.
Right.
And I loved it. That was cool.
What about when you went to Japan? Because you did some.
Oh, I did some drifting in Japan. Yeah, that was a dream. It's an absolute dream of mine. Because I guess as I was learning about drifting, and you hear about Ibisu, it's an area of Fukushima, so just a few hours north of Tokyo, and Ibisu is basically, you could call it the Mecca, the drifting Mecca of the world.
Yeah,
I guess it's up in the hills of Fukushima Prefecture, and there's I think 6 racetracks there on this plot of land, and they're up in the hills, and it's varying tracks of varying difficulties, and I guess it's the Mecca because it's where everyone goes to really hone their skills. If you get a car there, you are able to drive every single day of the week. It's open 7 days a week. And from maybe from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, you can drive until they hold their Matsuri event, which is their festival. So the Drift Matsuri gets held, I believe, 3 or 4 times a year. And during that time, there is 36 hours of non-stop drifting. That is so. If you've got crazy. The stamina, you can go all night and into the next morning. I went and had a bit of a sleep. Yeah. But you get up the next morning. I got up early and I was down at the track and someone was cutting laps.
How does that even work for concentration though? Like when you're tired,
you just go. You don't.
Isn't that a bit dangerous because you're actually driving? It's not like
there's energy drinks out there for that.
Stuff is really...
or maybe some other hard stuff. No, not in Japan though. You can't get that stuff.
Maybe they're drinking unleaded.
Oh,
maybe.
well, the fuel that they got over there is the high octane is like 100 octane.
That's what they're drinking. That's what keeps them awake.
That'll burn the hairs off your eyeballs for that. It's potent, that stuff. It smells awesome. But when I went there for that Drift Matsuri in 2019, that was definitely something to do. I was there for 10 days. The sack of potatoes that I bought to drift was an absolute shocker of a car. It was, and it, if anything taught me resilience and taught me perseverance, was that car there. And I had to make it drive. I got it in an undrivable state. You couldn't even drive in a straight line, just down the driveway to the track. It was so bad. And I had to weld, cut, hammer, bolt everything together to make it drivable. And I spent 7 days doing maintenance on that and go to the track, drive. All right, now that's fixed, but now this is broken.
Kind of sounds like your own Fast and Furious film. The Westerner goes over to Japan and then buys this wretched car, and he has to do all of this just to get it, drivable.
Yeah, it was a shocker. I got offered by friends back in New Zealand. I got offered to drive other people's cars, and I went and spoke to them. But there was like an 800 horsepower, $30,000 car. I'm like, yeah, thanks for the offer, but I'd rather not bin it, and I don't want to owe you $30K because I don't have that money. I'll just stick with my sack for the moment. It was good though. I stuck with it, and I was able to send it on the last couple of days, and we're able just to absolutely book it. And that was that video I sent you.
Yes.
Was that one? Now I think might have been on the day we were leaving. We actually were supposed to leave that morning.
So was that video you sent me in Japan?
Yes.
I see.
So that was and those 2 videos I sent you.
Yeah.
That was up at North Course in Japan, and I'd spent most of my time at that track just because it was a relatively easy track, especially with the car that I had that didn't handle very well. I needed to get that run that I sent you, that was the in-car video, that there was the run I needed to get that. I guess it's a very popular line that a lot of drivers take. And if you can sack up and do that line, you've achieved something. And I think coming from not being able to do that, drift that track in its entirety, and starting with a car that couldn't even hold a straight line, to be able to do that, I was pretty proud of myself.
Was it also important because of where you were actually drifting?
Yeah, I guess so. Because you're at Mecca, you can't just come here for 10 days and do no drifting. You've wasted, you've wasted 10 grand plus. Maybe I did it on it was a hella cheap drift week that I did it. I think I spent about 10 grand on just those 10 days. With all that's including the cost of the car, tires, entry fees. I had a buddy that lived further down the country. He drove about maybe 27 to 30 hours north to meet me at the track, and he brought his tools with him so I could use those. And if it wasn't for that, shout out to Sean, if it wasn't for that, I would have been on Struggle Street because I didn't have any tools. There is a garage there, Power Vehicles, that you can go use their tools and stuff, but they're busy as well. They're busy, getting other people's cars ready for the Drift Matsuri. So that's why I was so glad I was able to go days before to spend that time there, literally every day at the track, just to get seat time, work on the car, fix it, drive it, find what's wrong, fix it, drive it, and just rinse and repeat every single day.
Oh yeah.
Until the track closed at 4:00. Then you go have a shower. It's peak summer as well. I didn't choose the right time to go. August is
too hot.
Peak summer. 100% humidity. 30 odd degrees. It was terrible. I hate it.
Forgot
the wife loved it, but I was rinsed.
What did you make of the New Zealand drifting scene?
It has leveled up in the recent years.
What about when you was involved?
When I was involved, I guess I still loved it. I still loved it because I was driving and I was working on my technique. I was working on my driving skills, and I guess feeding off other New Zealand drivers, being involved with D1NZ, crewing for the bro Nate. That was fun. And then crewing for another lad, John, for a season. Helped out with another lad, Ben Jenkins, every so often. He's still going in pro. But I guess because I was involved in, and I had my own workshop at the time too. Yeah. My own automotive workshop. So I was trying to build my workshop to be a Sylvia workshop, just to work on Sylvia's, that would be the niche that I was trying to work towards. So I guess I still love New Zealand drifting, but the pinnacle always was what the Japanese lads and the guys and girls in Japan were doing on the street. That's the pinnacle. But you can't do that here. It's near nigh impossible to do that here. I guess I got a good mate who's moved to Japan now. He lives there full time, and he spent quite a bit of time with some street drifters over there down in Osaka, and just watching his driving level up, because it's free to go to the hills. They're out in the hills. No one lives out there. There's a patch of an area where a few lads will go. There might be 2 of them. There might be 10 of them. And they'll all go out to this one area and they'll just drive this section of road just hour after hour after hour after hour, honing their skills. And that's the only way you're going to get good, is being able to do it every single day, or maybe 3 times a week or whatever. Whereas in New Zealand, I might be lucky to get a drift day 3 times a year. So if I could get 3 to 4 drift days a year behind me, I'd be pretty stoked. I even noticed one year, it was my birthday in July, so I said to myself, I'm going to have a birthday month. I'm going to do 3 drift days this month. It just lined up. There was 3 drift days in the month of July, and I did all 3 of them. And just noticing how much I leveled up in that month, because I was able to squeeze 3 drift days into a month. Oh, it's expensive, but still.
What's the average cost for a day?
It's about at least $1,000 a day. For me.
And what does that pay for?
So I worked it out. For me, to do a local track might be just shy of $1,000. But if I was doing it on away day, so I'm out of town, you're looking at around about $1,000, maybe $1,200. My car is very low power compared to some people, so it saves on tires, but also saves on fuel. So, but because I don't have a trailer, I have to drive my car to the track. So I would drive myself down to Taupo with all my tools, my tires in the car, and sometimes I might have a support car, like Kat would come down in her car with some extra stuff. One time I was almost going to be sleeping in my car on the side of the road somewhere because to keep the cost down. But I ended up, a mate was living in Taupo at the time, was actually up in Auckland due to his job. So he says, bunk in my room. So I was able to steal his room at his flat for a night. So I didn't have to sleep in my car. But I was ready to sleep in my car on the side of the road just to save on costs. But yeah, that was $1,000 trip. It's $1,000 a day, and that was a 2-day event.
So yeah, you'd work out it would be quite costly if you're doing that through the year.
Yeah, I think because that cost, that's tires, fuel, track entry, any breakages you have, food, accommodation, everything. You know, that's everything. I sort of worked it out, and I guess some people might have that financial backing, but we sort of did, but didn't at the same time. You know, I guess because the kids were young back then. Kids don't eat much. They just, you know, you could sort of get away with a little bit of that travel back then when the kids were young. And sometimes it'd just be me. They'd go down to track day just to sort of save the hassle of dragging the girls around. And I mean, it's great for a track day at Manfield here. That's literally...
Yeah, it's just up the road. I hear them all the time.
Oh, the best sound, AP?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's because it's so close. Like, yeah, I don't need to, it's definitely a cheaper track day down here than it is in Auckland. But because I haven't been in a while, I don't know what the fees are like.
Oh, yeah.
But the entry fee might have been about maybe $250 to $280.
Oh, yeah.
Just for an entry fee. But down here, last I went was about $150, I think. So it's considerably cheaper.
And you don't have far to travel. You can literally walk there.
Yeah. I did blow my gearbox up 1 year in Taupo, and I had to drive home.
Wow.
I destroyed third gear. So there was nothing there. It was in third gear, there's just nothing. Stripped it clean. So the drive home was interesting. Thankfully, I had a couple of lads that were going back to Wellington. So they took some gear in their truck for me.
Oh, yeah.
And dropped it off on their way through. That was very kind of them, very helpful for that. Just to lighten a bit of load off the car, because going from second to fourth was quite hard up the hills, leaving Taupo, and then coming down into Fielding. So, but still awesome though. Got to drive with some awesome lads in those days. Yeah. I think New Zealand drifting was, I guess, there's a couple of lads that I can really testify to helping me out. One was the Dan Bennett, when he was telling me to go faster. Another lad, Taryn and Brendan, those two lads, they drive A86s. So 1980s spec Corollas, rear-wheel drive Corollas, and these boys send it. They're just... My car had more power than theirs, but they're lower power. But they just know how to drive. And they're fast lads. And chasing them was just so cool. And listening to their techniques. And I wish I could still drive with those lads. And I met them when I was up in Auckland recently. I bumped into them just out of randomly. So they want to come down to Manfield and drive Manfield one day. And if I get my crap sorted, I'd love to drive with them again. I have to dust the cobwebs off and see if I can still hold a skid, but one day that'd be cool.
Is it something that you do think about that you'll get back into? Because, as you know, we're not getting any younger.
Yeah, I always told myself, and I said to Kat when we got married, that I want to be a motorsport family. I wanted to be a motorsport family, and we to go to the track and do stuff together. Unfortunately, that hasn't quite worked out that way. But I'm not mad about it, not at all. But still, deep down in my core, I miss it greatly. I've taken up forward driving in the meantime, which is much cheaper in camping, much cheaper than drifting. But it's that slow pace. My oldest daughter and I would drive into Wellington to meet up with some lads to do a forward drive track. And it just so happened to be a drift day on the morning we were leaving to go to Wellington. And we would have been leaving Fielding at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. As a whole lot of drift cars was just started to drive into Manfield to get ready. And she goes to my oldest goes to me, "Dad, do you miss drifting?" I was like, "Why would you say that to me?" Yes, I do. I really do. So there was a little, you felt a little pinch there. It's like, but I still have my car, so it's probably not all lost. But that's why I can't get rid of it, because I'd love to get back and behind the wheel and just throw down again.
But you seem to be at relative peace with where you've come to.
Yes,
about it,
because I'm spending time with the family.
Yeah.
That, as much as I didn't want to do that initially, I've seen the benefits in that. You know, we still do cool stuff. We still hang out. My two girls are great. They do some awesome things. They're doing well at school. You know, we've got a roof over our head. I'm blessed, and I'm thankful for where I'm at. But still, I think a lad needs to have something that they pour their hearts into, apart from the family. I think, you know, I've had to get my priorities right as well. Definitely, I believe, like, putting my faith first, family second, and then my interest third. I guess I had a lot to learn about that in my younger days, but that's that's maybe where I feel that I've got the peace about it. But I know it still can trickle there. It's still lingering in the background. I open up my garage to go in there to do something, and I mean, yeah, okay, it's turned into a shelf now. And I had one of the boys like call me up about it, because I told him a car's not a shelf. Don't store stuff in your car. And my car is a shelf at the moment. It's got some sheets over it, and it's a big pile of neglect at the moment. I haven't started it in 2 years. I haven't even turned over the engine. But yeah, whatever. It's still there. I can still send it again.
If you look back on what you've experienced just in that scene, and I know you said you haven't gone to the lengths of some of the other guys that you've known and been involved with, and if you could just look at or pick one thing, what's the one thing in that whole experience in drifting that you're proud of?
Going to Japan.
Yeah.
Going to Japan and drifting, period. It was the pinnacle by a long shot. There's other things that I've done in New Zealand that have been awesome. It's hard. It would be hard to pick a second, but easily number one is going to Japan and drifting at Ibisu, because I got to do it before COVID too, before the world shut down.
Yeah.
Literally just before the world shut down.
So there's no regret?
No, none at all. Even if I didn't get to go to Ibisu, it's opened back up now, and it's, you know, I mean, I just came back from Japan, late last year, so early this year, from a trip with the family, doing non-car stuff, but still, like, it's all still there, still running, but the prices are so much higher now, so it'll make it harder. And I guess with all the way the inflation's gone, there's a thing called drift tax. on all the cars now, because the rise of the internet, the rise of Instagram and Facebook and everyone posting about everything they do does push the price up on a lot of vehicles, a lot of parts, a lot of wheels, all the paraphernalia that comes with drifting. I'd say it would be the same with anything almost. It's thrust into the limelight with the likes of Formula D Japan, Formula D America, D1NZ New Zealand, over here. So there's all the professional side of things grips everyone, and I think when I think about it, I think drifting is the most achievable motorsport out of all of them. I could be wrong, but I believe it is, because you look at V8 supercars in Australia, like you can't just go out and buy a V8 and go V8 supercar racing. You can't go buy a Formula 1 car and just go do Formula 1 racing. It might be easier to go get a rally car and go do rally driving. But doing drifting, I find, is probably the most accessible motorsport you could do. Definitely for a period of time was the fastest growing motorsport. And it took Motorsport New Zealand a while to actually, to actually accept it as a motorsport, because it seemed so bogan in a way. It seemed so, it's faster to go smoothly around a corner instead of sideways. All right, cool. That's no cool story, bro. It's not as fun. No way. You can put anyone in the passenger seat of a drift car and take them for a skid, and they're like, that's cool. I've never seen someone come out with not even a smile on their face.
I would assume it would give you such an adrenaline rush, especially if you're not the one who's driving. If you're in the passenger seat, I would gather that.
Both actually. I get such a rush. You get such a rush from driving. Like, you got your mate in front of you, or you. There's one day I was at Taupo and I could hear someone next to me. I looked over my shoulder as I was drifting to the left. I looked over my shoulder and he's right there next to me. And I said, no way, this is so cool. And then I've got my mate in front of me. And just some of the drivers that I've met that are just absolutely phenomenal. Some of the drivers that I've met, they drive so awesomely. There's a lad, Purnell. He just drove the pants off anything he had. There's a young fella, Kieran Stewart. He could send an MX-5 Miata. He just drove that thing like anything. He was just such a beast. And he still drives it like a beast today. He's a cool dude, you know? And there's so many lads that are just driving mentally, and it's to see what, I guess in a way, it's also to see what the human body can do. You get given this hunk of metal and rubber and wires and stuff, and a little thing you turn in there, you can send it, and you can do some cool things with it. I think it's just really awesome. Just the physics behind it. And nowadays, the technicality behind everything. I mean, off camera, we're talking about you're watching some podcast, and the technical terms I'm talking about, you said it was boring you a bit. Oh, mate, that bores me too, but it's just some people dive so deep into the technicality.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, it's just they're just so fascinated with the physics behind it all, and loading the car up here and doing this and setting the suspension like that. I was like, bro, I just want to drive. I've never been one for technical stuff. Just want to sit in the seat and drive. If the car doesn't work properly, well, maybe we'll do some adjustments here and there. But it's all based off suck it and see. That's all it was.
I mean, I did watch a couple of races, and one thing I found which was actually quite fascinating about the drifting is that there was a type of synchronicity to how they were driving, even in that race with the lead and the chase. It just seemed they were quite synchronized the way they went round the corner. Even though one was chasing the other, it seemed, really synchronized and quite coordinated in a way. So I can recognize and see things like that within it.
Well, I guess it's the organized chaos of it all. Because in competition, your lead driver, well, during all the practice, the drivers are told, right, by the judges, we want you to go here, here, and here. Do it as cool as you can. and we'll judge you. We'll give you points for that. So then that sets the tier levels of who's going to battle who. And in that time frame, you got all these lads that may have not driven with each other before. Some have, some haven't. And you got all the new kids coming up and the old dogs that just love sending it. And so the lead car goes out and the chase car has to mimic the lead car. That's their points are scored off them mimicking the car in front of them.
Right.
How close they can get without hitting them. And then you can get into like tactics of how to upset the driver behind you to get them to make a mistake so that you get to advance. You can get into that, or you can just send it. And then they swap over and then they have another go. So the guy who was chasing now leads, and he's got to do his best to take that line and keep it sort of within the boundaries of what the judges have asked. And then the same guy that was leading now has to mimic that guy. And then if it's too close to tell, if the judges can't decide, well, then go again. And that gets everyone fired up. When you see two guys just battling it out to see who's best. And you know they're having the time of their life. And when it's a real flashy show, it gets pretty exciting. And watching drifting just recently when we were in Japan in December last year, we went to a track day to watch the final of an all-stars event from this one in our region. And that got me all fizzed. Because there's 5 cars, I'll have to send you the video, but there's 5 cars coming around at once. I should have sent that one to you, actually. I forgot to. But there's 5 cars. The team of 5 of them are all going together. And I took my sister and her boyfriend to that. They'd never seen drifting before, ever in their life. And I said, come with me to this event. And I said, if you don't like it, if you don't want to stay, we'll just do half a day. Got to lunchtime, she's like, can we stay longer? Can we stay to the end? I was like, oh, heck yeah, we can. You're not going to ask me twice. So yeah, we stayed right to the end, and I was super stoked that they did, and they got a really good event. And we watched a cool event at this racetrack, and it was just to see people that have never seen drifting before, never even known about it, had no clue about it, and they get to see it in Japan at one of its core roots. Because some of these guys that have been drifting have been doing it, maybe 30 years or so, you know? Some of these guys have been in it for 20 plus years, and that's all they do. And the one thing about the Japanese, they take a hobby and they'll do it 110%. If old mate wants to collect stamps, he'll be collecting stamps at 110%. If someone wants to build model trains, he'll build those model trains 110%. If they want to go drifting, you can just bet your dollar that they'll go 110%. And I guess it's just the Japanese nature. And that's why you see a lot of awesome drivers come out of Japan. But hey, there's awesome drivers all over the world. And that's why it's really cool going to Ebisu as well, is that you meet people from all over the world there. Because it's the Mecca, because it's the meeting place for the international meeting place. I guess the Japanese people do get a bit more foreigners. But I met some guys from Austria there, and they only came to watch. I was like, man, I don't know, how could you come here just to watch?
I gathered it was global because when I was watching one of the races from D1NZ, I think it was this year's one, there was like quite a number of comments, but there was one comment on some guy wrote, he said, love the show, sending love from Switzerland. So it is a global thing, right? People search it out. But just circling back, as you mentioned, the one thing when I asked you that you're proud of was racing in Japan. Do you have any regret of something that you haven't done in drifting before you've parked it for the last 6 years?
In drifting as a whole, that I regret.
When you was within the scene that you've taken a hiatus from, is there one thing you regret that you haven't done or you should have done?
maybe spending more time going to Japan and drifting.
Right.
Maybe that's a very small maybe, because I'm still satisfied from what I've done. Yet there are lads I know personally and just people I know from the car scene that have actually spent a lot more time going to Ibisu just to get better, because it effectively is cheaper to fly to Japan, do multiple track days, and have a car there instead of some guys don't have a car in their home country now.
Yeah.
Like I've just actually heard some stories on the other weekend of people that actually are shipping their New Zealand cars to Japan to take to Ibisu, to park at Ibisu, so that they've got a car that they know and trust. Because it's harder to get cars over there now because they're all being totaled. Because at Ibisu, it's a place to test your skills and to absolutely send it. So the car I had, the one I sent you a video of, like I told you, it was an absolute sack, and it looked terrible. It's all beat up everywhere. But because it's all beat up, you don't mind pushing the boundaries a bit further to see what the limits of what you can do. I guess in the drifting scene, it's called a missile. So you're just there to send it. You're there to push the boundaries. So most of the cars are pretty. They're pretty beat up. They don't look awesome. But then there's the odd lad that they would have spent a bit more on a car, and you want to try and keep it as good as you can for as long as you can. But there is going to be wear and tear, and those cars are driven hard. Like, I saw things that were broken on the car that I had. I was like, how do you break that in that spot there? How? But it's just all the stresses that are involved in a car moving like it does, at the speed it does, at the rate of switching between corners.
Oh yeah,
it's going to put so much stress on the chassis. And metal can only bend so much for so long. But in regrets, no, maybe just not. Yeah, the only thing, I guess, my one regret that I've probably been able to subside would be selling that car that I have, selling my S13 that I have now. If I did sell that, which I was being very close to at times, being financially hard, and I've had even my dad say, don't do it. And I've had friends say, don't do it. Don't sell the car. Or if you do, sell it to me and then buy it back off me for the same price that you sold it to me for. I've had offers like that before. But I was like, no, I can't. I just can't.
So you mentioned, there's a couple of things you've mentioned after talking about what you call a hiatus.
Yeah.
So during this period of about 5-6 years?
Yeah.
What have you done to actually replace or fill that gap that drifting had? You mentioned a couple of things about family and your faith.
I really had to pull off social media because watching it on social media,
constant reminder,
was always a constant reminder. You see what all the boys are up to and all the cool stuff they're doing, and I look at my car, I'm like, I can't even put petrol in it. Or I'm driving, I'm still driving it to work a while back, a few years back, but it's just I had to pull it off the road because it's a little bit beat up. I need to do a bit of work on it to get it up to Warren Fitness standards again. So, I mean, it's cool driving around. And I remember one kid came up to me when I was driving through Palmerston North. He said, I never thought I'd see an internet car here in Palmy. I just looked at him. I was so confused. I was like, what do you mean? I'm not an internet person. Like, I'm not one of the cool kids. I think he thought, because he'd seen my Instagram, and he thought, oh, this is one of those internet cars. Like, what's it doing here? I was like, it's not me, mate. I'm definitely not an internet personality. I think, but it was sort of cool that someone had seen it and, followed. It gives you like the good feels. But at the time when I sort of had to put it on pause just because of family time, had to take precedence, it was hard. So I guess by putting that on pause was definitely a good thing. But putting it in the garage and putting a sheet over it, it's basically out of sight, out of mind at the moment.
But it's there though.
Yeah, I do know it's there. But still, because it's covered in a sheet and I don't actually have to actually look at it, it is a little bit easier. But I guess the hobbies I've taken up and to sort of replace that has been forward driving, off road, and going camping, because all of us can go. And I mean, that's one thing I did say to the wife when we bought my truck, is that we all can go on this. All 4 of us can go down this track to this campsite, and we can all hang out. It is completely a polar opposite to drifting. It's slow, and obviously we're over rough terrain, driving through rivers, going to campsites where there's no one here, versus a track day where you got some of the drift festivals in New Zealand that we went to. There's thousands of people here. You're driving on a smooth racetrack, and you're sending it, you're got smoke and noise and everything. And I've gone to the polar opposite where I'm camping, and the only smoke is coming from my campfire as I'm cooking my steaks and sitting out under the stars.
I think the difference is that although you mentioned that you said to Kat that you want to be a motorsport
family? Yeah.
I think the difference that I see with that is that mainly it's you that's experiencing it, whereas with the camping, it's all of you. It's a shared experience, isn't it?
I think back when I said that to her about I want to be a motorsport family, when we knew that our first was being born, when she first got pregnant with Maddie, I think that was my idea of that's what I want to do. I never consulted her about what she wanted to do either. So that was my selfishness taking over there. I was like, I want to do this. We are going to do this. And I think, in hindsight, looking back at it, she didn't want to do that. Well, maybe she did, but not to the degree that I wanted to do that. So, yeah, I guess.
It's kind of like you have to be all in with it, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
I do. I think because we've been having this chat, I have been going back in and looking at old videos and listening to podcasts.
That was my one worry.
What, that I'd do that?
No, the fact that when we had the chat before about that I wanted to talk to you about this part, you're like, it will just bring back memories. I remember you saying that in the gym. You're just like, it's just going to bring back, memories, and now I'm going to have to brush up on the things that I did. And,
because
it just re-invoke that whole feeling that you had when you was there. And I kind of didn't want to trigger that off, but
it's great though, because I've enjoyed watching my old videos and stuff like that, and I saw the progress from the start, to where I've ended up now. But I guess part of me is like, but look what the boys are up to. Look at the way they're driving. Wow, that's sick, man. Like, they're sending it, and it's sort of like sparked me to get back behind the wheel. And that's when I said to Maddie, I think it was yesterday or this afternoon. It might have been yesterday. Should I get back and drifting? She's like, yeah, you should do it. So I shook her head at me. She's like, no.
Really? Yeah.
She's like, how are we going to pay for that? Exactly. And I just can't afford to.
So it's not cheap.
No, definitely not. But hey, if the opportunity comes to drive again in the near future, I will do what I can to maybe try and make a day or 2 or 3. But it's
the thing is that once you get back that whole, how can I put it? That not belief, but that kind of taste of it. How much you want to actually chew and devour.
But you said it earlier. Like, you've got to be all in. Like, you got to be in it. Like, I guess.
Well, that's what it just seems. I mean, I've never done drifting, but I can understand from some things I've done, like, you have to be all in, otherwise it just won't work.
But not necessarily drifting. I mean, like a hobby. I think I've been challenged by multiple people that I have too many hobbies, and like, I do. I'll admit that. I do have a few hobbies that I'm really focusing on at the moment. Forward driving, I've pulled back on because I guess it does put strain on the vehicle, and that is my mode of transport to get to work. And I guess my other hobbies is a lot slower, and I don't have to go anywhere for these other hobbies. I can stay at home for these other ones, and I really enjoy them too. But I think, forward driving, I found that you got to put time and effort into it too. You have to But I think that's the same. Yeah, any hobby, you have to actually put a lot of effort and just focus in on it. You can't just dibble dabble around the sides and just expect to be able to be good at it. Yeah, definitely finding it for my latest hobby that I'm doing, which I picked up for the last few years.
So, in closing, are there any words or anything you'd like to leave with the frequency of the Kaleidoscope Mind? Something for us here to ponder over or to think about or to dwell upon.
That's a heavy question.
Is there anything you want to leave us with?
That's a heavy question. Oh, man. Actually, I'd love to, say something profound, but I guess I don't know. Sorry, you've caught me off guard there. I don't think I'm not a profound speaker, but I think just being able to put your focus into I believe putting focus into family is probably one of my main ones that I've done, and to see the beauty in that, and to see the beauty in putting time and effort into your family, and especially bringing up kids and teaching them cool things, taking them cool places, and being able to do that in a way to show them the world. And I mean, it might be different for everyone else, but I guess that's for me. It's putting that family in, and I mean, we go on hikes now. We try to have like movie nights, game nights, read the Bible together, do that sort of thing that we can always try and support each other doing that, so that helping these kids become solid members of society for the current times that we're in. I think that's what I'm sort of my main focus at the moment. Drifting would be great, but fortunately financial situations don't allow that right now. But hey, one day I might be blessed with something. I might be able to pick it up again, and that'd be really cool if I could.